So we were speaking about love, if you recall, and the difference between the love that the complete tzaddik has towards God and the love that the Benoni, which is really why this book was written, for each of us to at least become Benoni, because we each have the power to do so, but the love that the Benoni has towards God. The love that the Benoni has towards God is a love that is intense, and therefore even if an evil thought permeates the Benoni's mind, he immediately pushes it out. But it's still not complete because his mind has room for the entry of this evil thought. If my love was complete, my love was uh, uh, just just one with God, to put it that way, then I wouldn't even have the room for any evil thoughts. My mind would be so infatuated with God that why even think of an evil thought? And that's the love that the complete tzaddik has. He's so madly in love with God that anything that stands opposite God, he immediately rejects. Not only does he reject, but it doesn't even enter his consciousness. It's not even in the realm of his existence. And it's true for any other type of love. I know we're speaking about love towards God, but it's true for our love with our spouse, with a friend. My love is complete. Then I don't even entertain the idea of anything that stands opposite us or that may distract us because I'm so one with my beloved. That's the love that the tzaddik has versus the love that the Benoni has, that he stole. A love that is very valid and very full, but it's not complete to the point that it rejects any type of evil thought from its surroundings, its realm. So that was the big idea that we shared last week. Let's continue here at the bottom of page 31. As mentioned, of this experience, the rabbi said. Does anyone want to read?
I'll read.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Of this experience, the rabbi said, your world you will see in your life. A person in other worlds will see his true world, his world to come in his lifetime in this world. With the love of delights, what more could one ask for? Whom do I see in heaven but you, the psalmist says, and in your presence I seek nothing else on earth. One feels God's presence, and this experience approximates the pleasure of the world to come.
Right, because what is the world to come? And how can we see the world to come in this world, as it says by the righteous, by the complete tzaddik? The world to come is a world in which I bask in God's domain, in God's pleasures. And there's nothing else but God. In this world, we have materialism, we have things that seem opposite to God. So there are a lot of distractions. But in the world to come, there are zero distractions. I'm completely one with God. So how can I see the world to come in this world? By actualizing this love, where I'm one with God. And then if I'm really one with God, all that matters to me, all that exists in my personal existence is God. And that is exactly what heaven is. That the only existence is God, nothing else. In this world too, but again, God is concealed, and therefore there are distractions. And those distractions can not only distract us, but can also create some dents between us and God. But if I don't allow those distractions to even exist in my realm, then I'm one with God, and then I'm seeing heavens in this world. You know that in many ways, I think this can be compared to what King David says. I think we've mentioned this in the past about an infant, that in many ways, King David yearned for this type of relationship with God because that's the time in which we can see heaven here on earth. What's the relationship that an infant has? And he says that, I think, in Psalm 131, Kagamul alei imo, kagamul alai nafshi. Just as an infant lies in the arms of his mother after he was fed, just because he wants to be there. Because the only thing he cares about is being in the embrace and in the love of his mother. So too, my soul wants to be in that embrace of God, even though I'm not wanting anything from God. I was already fed. But just like an infant is in the embrace of his mother, so too I want to be in the embrace of God. That's the ultimate relationship. Nothing else matters. If I'm in the embrace of my mother, I don't care what happens around. I know I'm one with God, and Not only does that protect me, but that gives me everything I need. And in many ways, that's the love, again, that the righteous have and that we should at least strive to have. The only thing that should matter is God. And I'm one with God, then really this world doesn't speak to me at all. I just heard I have a good friend who was very close to one of the great Hasidic Jews of our generation, Mendel Futerfas. We've mentioned him many times. He was in the Gulag for many years for practicing Judaism in the Soviet Union, and he himself had very troubled, very hard life. I think 4 of his children died in his lifetime. He himself never met his father. When his mother was pregnant with him, his father died. He had a very, very difficult life. Nonetheless, he was always smiling, and he was always on a different plane altogether, even in the Gulag. And my friend just told me the story about how in his last Passover on earth, I think this was 1995. I think he passed away in 1996, 1995, 1996. But anyway, in his last Passover on earth, him and his family were living not far away from him, from Mendel Futerfas. And they decided to go and visit him during the Seder night to see how he was doing, because he was very sick. And they came towards the end and they see that Mendel Futerfas is sitting on the couch. And as soon as he comes in, my friend comes in with his father, Mendel Futerfas tells him, "Oh, you came at the perfect time because I'm very sick and I drank 4 cups of wine and I need to go to the bathroom and no one can lift me up for me to go to the bathroom. So you came at the perfect time." So they went and picked him up, and then Mendel Futerfas's wife says, "Mendel, I told you not to drink the 4 cups. You don't have to drink the 4 cups. What did you do?" And you filled yourself up with matzah, and the doctor's not going to be happy. And she went on and on. And then my friend tells me Mendel Futerfas turns to his wife with a big smile, and he says, "For 86 years, I think that's how old he was. For 86 years, I've been laughing at this world. You want me now to give in? I'll keep laughing at the world. So I'll drink 4 cups of wine." By many ways, this was a man who was one with God. I do what God wants me to do. I'll do the mitzvah. If the world agrees, if the world doesn't agree, I don't care. I'm in the embrace of my mother, so to speak. That's the only existence that counts. We have to laugh at the world. Many ways, I think it's something that maybe we can't fully achieve because, again, life is life and we have to pay bills and we have things to do. But on the other hand, we can carve moments in which we say, "Okay, now I'm one with God. Nothing else matters. I'll laugh at the world."
But you can't be one with God and cut yourself off from the world either,
Yeah, that's why.
as
That's why I
some
think
may
it's
want to
very
do.
hard. Sorry?
As some may want to do.
Right. Absolutely. But so that's why it's very hard. And like I was saying, it's hard to be in this world and yet not remember that you're not of this world, as Rabbi Steins would often say. But in many ways, I want to go deeper, and I'm glad you brought this up, William. I want to say that if you are truly one with God, you'll also be truly one with His creation, the world. So being one with God shouldn't disconnect you from this world. It would actually enhance your connection with this world, and in the most divine way, because then you're connected with the God in this world. And going back, not to deviate too much, but going back to what the Talmud says about the argument that was launched by the angels when God gave Moses the Torah and the Jewish people. The angel stood in God's way and said, "You can't give this Torah, to this precious treasure, to the Jewish people. You leave it here in heaven. We need the Torah here," the angels were saying. And God told Moses, "You answer them." One of the things Moses said is, "One second, you want to receive the Torah, angels? Do you have parents?" It says, "Respect your parents." Do you have parents that you can respect? There's no. And he says, "Well, it says, do not steal. Do you have any evil inclination that can cause you to steal?" They say, "No." So, and he went one thing after the other. And he said, "You see, the Torah doesn't belong to you, it belongs to us." And Moses won the argument. And in many ways, the deeper realm of this is that what Moses was telling the angels is that the Torah has to belong to this world. And for us to become one with God, we need to apply the Torah to this world, not to make it divorce us from this world. Opposite. It engages us with this world in the holiest way. So the more connected I am with God, the more connected I am with His creation. And the more I know how to become one with the God in creation. That is achieved through, of course, the channel of mitzvot. If I know how to not steal, if I know how to respect my parents, then I'll know how to connect to some of the aspects of this world in the holiest way. And so it is with everything, every other aspect of this world. But you're right. The more I'm connected with God, the more I should be connected with this world. To the point that this world is really one with God. And I don't see any difference between this world and God Himself. Speaking of Rabbi Steinsaltz, I think I shared this with you. Maybe I'll share it with you again, Margot, and then you can share it with the whole group. But a prayer was discovered shortly after Rabbi Steinsaltz passed away, a prayer that he himself composed at the young age of 19, 20. He would tell us very often to compose our own prayers. In addition, of course, to the prayers of the Siddur. And a beautiful prayer that he composed was discovered, and one of the lines in that prayer is that God, Zakeni Elohai, or merit, give me the merit to see, grant me the merit to see that the imaginary partition between this world and God is really just imaginary. So that when I see you, God, I see this world, and when I see this world, I see you. And I think it's a very powerful idea, because that's really what it means when God tells us in Deuteronomy, Ein od milvado, there's nothing else but God. It's not telling us, hey, just live in the heavens like some Tibetan monk. It tells us, no, be engaged in this world. You have to get married, not like a Catholic, get married. Get engaged in this world, make an impact on this world, change society as we know it. So, but remember that I'm there with you in every aspect of society, in every aspect of reality. And when you connect to the God in the world, then you realize, Ein od milvado, God is everywhere. There's nothing else but God. So it's a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. It's true. That in many ways, I think, is also what separates Judaism from other faiths, as we mentioned, that, because it's easy, many ways, if you think about this, it's easy to be entirely immersed in the pleasures of this world, to be disconnected from God. It's also easy to be entirely disconnected from this world, to live in some meditative mode very far away and not have to pay bills and not have to do anything that this world requires. Pretty easy too. But to be in this world, yet not to be affected by this world, so that I am one with the God in this world, that's much harder. On the other hand, that's what Judaism requires of us. And that's what this is speaking about. Our love with God is so one and so complete that it must include the love of God in every human being, even the most annoying ones. The love of God, even in the most annoying situations or circumstances or challenges. Embracing God in every moment, in every place, in every person. That's what true love means. Okay, I'd love to hear your comments. Please, just like William's brilliant comment now. It was very good. Anything else? Otherwise, we can continue, but please. Okay, let's continue then. Bottom of page 31 here.
And not every man can attain this state, for this is the nature of gracious reward. When one performs a commandment and actually senses that the reward of the commandment is the commandment, he sees that it is not only by doing one commandment that he earns the merit to do another, but that the reward of the commandment is the commandment itself. The very delight and spiritual wealth that he experiences through the commandment is his reward in this world. Not everyone has the fortune to attain such a level.
Right. And this is a quote from the Ethics of Our Fathers, that the reward of the commandment is the commandment. Schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. And elsewhere, the author of the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, explains this with a parable of a king that asks a simple peasant to go and bring him a cup of water. Now, before that commandment of the king to the simple peasant, really, the simple peasant felt no connection with God. But when the king now tells the peasant that he needs to bring him a cup of water, that means that the peasant is validated in the eyes of the king and that he's needed by the king. He needs him, not someone else, to bring him a cup of water. And when the peasant receives that commandment, it's the greatest source of joy for him because, I thought I was just a small peasant, but the king needs me. I have a connection with the king. And that in of itself is enough for the peasant. If the peasant brings the king a cup of water and he gets a reward, the king pays him for it, for example, or not, it doesn't matter. Just the mere connection that was established between the peasant and the king through this bringing him a cup of water is the reward in of itself. It elevates the peasant to heights that he could never reach. Same with God. When God tells us to do a mitzvah, whether we receive a reward for that mitzvah, we promise to receive rewards for mitzvahs, but it's not what counts. By the way, it's one of the 13 principles of faith, of Maimonides, where God says, Maimonides writes that we believe with complete faith that God rewards the good and punishes the bad. So rewards come, but it's not the reason for which I'm doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah itself is the reward. It established a connection with God and made me indispensable in the eyes of God. Is there a greater reward than that? And I have a connection with the King of Kings. And whether it doesn't matter the mitzvah too, whether it's bringing him a cup of water or whether it's tying his shoelace, it really doesn't matter. But just the fact that I am one with God through this connection is the greatest reward one can get. And that's why the schar mitzvah, the reward of the commandment, is the commandment itself. Now that's on a simple level. On a deeper level, every commandment draws down light to this world, as the Tanya also itself explains, and Kabbalah speaks a lot about this. Every commandment brings down godliness to this world, a ray of light. Think about it that way. That comes down to this world at every commandment, and therefore betters the world. That's how the taken olam b'malchut Shaddai, that we say every day in Aleinu, from which the term of tikkun olam came. I just wish the term of tikkun olam was more complete than the way we say it, because tikkun olam means repairing the world, but in the context from which it comes, it says repairing the world with the kingship of God, not just repairing the world. Repairing the world with the kingship of God, which is maybe different than what some people think of tikkun olam. But when I repair with the world with kingship of God and do those mitzvahs, then I draw down, and I'm repairing the world. I draw down this light that repairs this world. So on a deeper level, the mitzvah itself is the reward, because the light that was drawn down by me doing this mitzvah in this world is eternal, and it repairs the world eternally in its own way, with its own ingredients, so to speak. But that in of itself is the greatest reward. Whether I receive reward for that on the side or not, it really doesn't matter. I just drew down a light that was never here since the beginning of creation. And that helped repair the world. And that brings us a step closer to Mashiach, which is the ultimate repair of the world. So is there greater reward than that? That's the deeper level. The deeper understanding of the reward of the commandment is the commandment. And that's why one of the Hasidic rabbis said that if we knew the power of doing mitzvahs, we would never stop doing them. If we could see it, never stop doing it. Because the light that each mitzvah brings is so immense and so repairing that we would want to do it all the time if we could really understand that the reward of the commandment is the commandment, is what it achieves. So that's the deeper level. That's also why we never know, just to emphasize this point. But again, I want to hear more people speaking. We never know the power of even one mitzvah that appears small in our eyes, because if you think about it from that Kabbalistic viewpoint that we just explained, if every mitzvah, in other words, draws down light, so it doesn't matter what mitzvah you're doing, whether it's giving 1 penny to tzedakah, or whether it's going out of your way to visit the sick. Now, you may say, well, visiting the sick is really the most important mitzvah, and especially if you went out of your way and it wasn't convenient for you and you really came out of your comfort. Great. But on an essential, in an essential way, on a very foundational level, you've achieved the same thing. Giving a penny to tzedakah drew down light. Visiting the sick drew down light. Now, yes, it refines you more when you come out of your comfort zone, and it can elevate you personally much more. But still, from the drawing down the light perspective, you've achieved the same thing. And therefore, don't start now saying, I'm only going to do the important mitzvahs and not the small ones. Because they both achieve the same thing. They both repair this world. And they both have a reward in and of themselves that are equal. And that's why we should never differentiate between small ones and bigger ones. Even though I acknowledge again that the bigger mitzvahs, yes, refine you a little bit more because they demand more effort and etc. But still, on a tachlis level, as they call it in Israel, bottom line, they've achieved the same thing. We've drawn down light that repairs this world.